Welcome to Faith Now on Faith Social. Today we are glad to continue with the next segment of our new series called Atypical Outreach, where we're having conversations with ministry and lay leaders who work with specific demographics of believers who often struggle to fit in the traditional church model. My name is Beth with the Faith Social team, and today I have the honor to introduce you actually to my mom, who will be talking about widows, young widows, and even friends that she has who are widows in the church and who are believers. Hi, Paula, or Mom, as I like to call you.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning. Can you tell us some about your story?
In about April of 2012, I received a phone call from my husband's work, letting me know that he had passed out suddenly at work. It was quite a shock to all of us because he was a runner. He was in fabulous health. We had no idea. The doctors first thought it was his heart, but we found out several months later that he had a glioblastoma cancer in his brain. In September of 2012, he went through extensive brain surgery, even more extensive than we could have imagined. But the Lord blessed greatly. He was still able to talk. He was able to walk. He was able to do everything, which to the doctors, as extensive as the surgery was, that was considered a miracle. And so we were very thankful for that. He went through the radiation treatment, the chemo treatment, and did really, really well. And in December of 2013, we found out that his brain cancer it was not one that would go away, but it was stable. And that was just amazing. That was just such an answer to prayer. But in February of 2014, we were hit very hard. Sorry.
You're good.
The fact that the brain cancer had come back, but this time it was a different level. It was a level 4, which you don't survive those. And he was given a few months to live. We circled around him, both of my daughters and I, and we took care of him at home for as long as we could. And then he passed away in August of 2014. And that was a very, very hard time for all of us. Mm-hmm. But it was interesting to me during that time. I'll never forget driving home one day from work, because I was still trying to work full time for a while there. And I just pulled to the side of the road and just bawled and yelled and fussed. And I literally sat there and I could almost visually see my faith in God shattered. It was totally, it was, if you can imagine like a vase, a beautiful vase, it was laying in my hand in pieces because I didn't, my faith, that I knew the faith I had built up over my lifetime, and my faith and my walk was gone. It just was laying in my hands in pieces. And I remember sitting there and just lifting up my hands and going, Lord, you're the only one that can put this back together. Mm-hmm. You're going to have to, because I can't. And it was really interesting. It didn't happen overnight necessarily, but the next morning I was given just this picture in my mind of a vase, kind of like a stained glass window, totally pieced together, not really, random. It was different colors here, there, and everything. It was still actually absolutely gorgeous. And it was stronger then than it had been. And it's taken a while, and God's still building my vase of my faith. And that is just a very special thing to me that he is doing that. It's just taken time, and he's teaching me what real faith looks like. It's not the, everything's going to be perfect faith. It's the, I'm here even in those struggles and those challenges.
Even getting to walk some of that with you, hearing the story back like that, it just brings so many different things back to my mind. Mm-hmm. And I just want to first off go ahead and say thank you for sharing the story with everybody. And I also want to ask you, was there something someone said to you ever that was pivotal, that was helpful, that you want to share with people who maybe are going through loss?
There are so many things that people shared with me, so many different things that helped. But one thing that I actually share a lot of the time with people, whether they're going through grief or going through a struggle, particularly grief, particularly what I call widow's grief, because it's different.
Yeah.
A dear lady that's also a fellow widow reached out to me within the first few weeks of our loss. And she was one of the few that I had peace to talk to, because there was a lot of pain in that time.
Mhm.
In talking to her, though, she explained to me that grief, she gave me an illustration of going to the beach. If you're at the beach, you're standing at the water's edge and you start walking in. Right at first, you feel the waves, they're there, you feel them on your feet. Grief is like that. It's going to always be at least that much.
Mm.
Then there are those moments where it's going to get a little higher and it's going to hit you around your knees, and you're going to lose your balance a little bit, but it's just at your knees, you're okay. And then you're going to have your moments where it's going to hit you higher and it's going to be harder to keep your feet. But then there's those moments that are going to be like a tsunami, and they're just going to come from nowhere, and they're going to knock you off your feet and knock you on your back. But you have to remember in those times that God is there. He is not leaving you. He's not forsaken you. He will be there always, and he will keep lifting you up. And I needed the reminder at that time, because I felt like I was in a constant tsunami at that time. And to have those words telling me, this is normal, this is what you're going to expect, it's going to get better, but it will never go away, but it will get lots better. But to also be told there in the beginning, you're going to have your moments where you're fine, you're just playing in the edge of the water, you don't even really notice it anymore, and then a tsunami is going to hit and knock you off your feet. Grief comes in waves. These things that people say, well, grief is only those certain stages, and you have to go through the stages, you're done. No, you're going to go through those stages several different times. Mm. Sometimes the stages will come in different orders. There'll be different things. There'll be a song on the radio that you hear, or a scene in a movie or something that's going to trigger you. But that's okay. That just means that person was very precious to you. Mm-hmm. It's okay to still have moments. It's okay to miss them. That's totally natural. Mm-hmm. It's the people that say to us as widows. I have a dear friend that lost her husband just this year. I mean, she's maybe 8 months out now, but 3 months ago, she had somebody saying, aren't you over it yet? Aren't you moved on? And it's like, no, she's not moved on, and it's going to take a while. That first year is a blur. That first year is fog. You just have to survive that first year, and you will. And, it does. That's my biggest hope for anybody is, that they will get there. It just takes time, and everybody's schedule is different than anybody else's.
Mm-hmm. The waves hit differently for different people. That's really good. Wow. So were there things that you can recall that people did, or that maybe even you wish people had done, that you want to encourage people who maybe have a widow or widower, or even someone who's just grieving in their life, and they want to, do something, or, they're not sure what to do?
A dear neighbor that I still remember him promising my husband that, hey, I'm going to help with the grass. She doesn't have to worry about it. And he does, he and his sons. And yes, I pay them, but I don't pay them what that's worth, because, that's just a very precious thing. But, my advice to people is, if you are an electrician, if you're a plumber, if you are a handyman, or if you are a lady that just loves to do something for somebody, send somebody a note, offer to help them, but be genuine, and be sure you know them. Don't you dare try to take advantage of them. Because I fully believe, the Lord promises that he will take care of widows.
Right.
And we just don't want somebody to try to hurt them, because that's just great. And one thing that I think is really precious is, just reaching out and speaking to that neighbor or that lady at church. People are so afraid to talk to widows after they've lost somebody. They don't know what to say. Just say something.
Right.
She can help your heart. She knows. Beth, you and your sister stood there at different times when people have said some of the most awkward, just off the wall things. And y'all would sit there and look at me like, oh my word, did they just say that? Those people, God gives a widow an amazing grace to just hear kind of the things. She's hearing it, but he also lets you hear the heart behind it. And he lets you hear the fact that this person really cares about you and cares about your husband that passed. They're trying. And I think that's the big thing is just try. Just know that you're not afraid of them. They're not going to bite you. Because there's people that still avoid me because they just don't know what to say, and I somehow terrify them. And it's just actually comical, very comical in some ways. But I guess that's my biggest thing is the things you wish somebody would do for you, do for them. And particularly if they have no family nearby,
right?
They really need somebody to reach out and care for them.
Yeah. It's also good, we can use our talents, but we can also just utilize the heart like God's given you for that person, whoever it is, whether it's something simple like a note or mowing their lawn or cutting those bushes for them or whatever it is. Like, I just love that because it doesn't have to be complicated. And I think sometimes people want to know the perfect thing to say. And so they wait and wait and wait for that perfect thing or that perfect time. And neither of those things, like there's not going to be a perfect time. There's not going to be a perfect thing to say. It's such great advice. Like just, have a good heart behind it and, maybe even just pray that that's what shows through. And that's just such great advice. To transition back to people who have lost, is there something you would say to somebody who's lost a spouse specifically?
Yeah. I'll tell you, anyone that's lost somebody, I'll tell you what I tell all the widows that I know. It's just growing of the widows that I have met, of the ones that lost their spouses right before I lost mine, and the ones that have lost since I lost mine. Our little group is growing more than I ever could imagine. And our age demographic is definitely getting younger. Age demographic between the upper 30s and early 60s is growing and growing because of cancer and other things. And that's just tough for all of us. But I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, I am so sorry for your loss. More than words can say, and I'm sorry that I'm all blubbery, but my heart really does go out to you. Know what that pain feels like. It's not easy, but God's got you. He's not going to leave you. You are here for a reason. There's a purpose that you're here. He's not forsaken you. You're not being punished. There are some that are going to want to tell you that you're being punished. You're not being punished. God does not work that way. He loves you dearly, and he will take care of you. It may not look like the rosy life that you had hoped for, but just know, kind of like a verse that has been very phenomenal to me is Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. Trust in the Lord all your heart and lean not on your understanding, but in all your ways acknowledge him and he'll direct your path.
So what have you found to be the typical church experience for widows? So for yourself, for your friends, can you share with us a little bit about that?
So the Lord led me to a very large church in the area with an amazing pastor. And that pastor, the words that he would give and the songs that were sung would just roll and wash over me and actually help my soul soar, which that was something that was really needing, because was still building God was still building my faith back. And he used that church and that pastor and that choir, to help with the pieces and helping seal that vase back up. And I know he's still building it, but that was just amazing for me. And it was very precious. And I needed a chance to kind of get closer to God again and learn from him. And that church allowed me that part, but still also I was kind of isolated. I wasn't in the bubble. I wasn't in a fishbowl anymore. There were a few people that were close to me that knew I was a widow in that church, but they always treated me normal. They treated me just like they did before my husband passed. And that to me is a huge key. And honestly, I'd love an opportunity just to encourage pastors, church leaders, find a place for the widows. Throw a widow like in her 40s, early 50s. Do not throw her in the room with the women that are 70, 80.
Yeah.
I tried it. It doesn't work. And it also doesn't work to throw them in with all the women that are, just because we're now single and choose our singlehood. And I know there's a lot of divorced people that didn't choose it either, and it's just a hard situation. We, help them find community.
Yeah.
Help them if they want to volunteer, let them volunteer. And help them find a place that they enjoy, not just where you need somebody filling in. And I encourage churches to do a lunch for their widows, so they can get together and see, oh, I'm not the only one in this church. Particular churches need to do something like that. Send them encouraging notes, letting them know that you're praying for them.
Right.
Don't get them. That's because there's been churches that, they've done away with the widow ministry because they were like, the funds, we don't need to use our funds there. They don't need anything, fine. Their family has them. Well, regretfully, there's some people that don't have family members anymore. Their spouse, that was their family. That was the main one that they leaned on. So we just kind of think outside the box a little bit and talk to them.
That was so good. Good advice. Okay. Do you have anything else you want to share?
I do. I would just like to say to every widow, and I can't speak to widowers. I know that they struggle too, but I'm specifically speaking to widows right now. I mentioned earlier about trusting in the Lord and that Jesus is our living hope. There is a verse that the Lord blessed me as I came across in the Bible, Romans 15:13. Now may the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace as you trust in him, so that you may overflow with hope by the power of the Holy Spirit. I know there's going to be some tough times. I know there are going to be times that you will feel alone, but you're not. There'll be times when you feel hopeless, but you have hope. You have the best hope. You have the living hope. And just know that you will be fine. You will get through this. And remember, beyond everything, you are dearly, dearly loved by the Lord.
That's so good. That's so good. Well, thank you so much for coming on here and just sharing your story with us. I know it's our prayer that would just impact people in the church and people who maybe have lost a loved one recently. As my mom so eloquently said, you're not alone. Just remember that, hold on to that. It's truth that you can stand on. But thank you so much, Mom, for coming on here. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.